The worst year to be alive? It is not 1349, when the Black Death wiped out half of Europe. Not 1918, when the flu killed 50 million to 100 million people, out of which most were young adults. But 536 AD. In the year 536, a mysterious fog plunged Europe, the Middle East, and parts of Asia into darkness, day, and night, for 18 months. Research and interest around these events started in the 1990s, when it was discovered through tree ring studies that summers around the year 540 AD were unusually cold. Temperatures in the summer of 536 AD fell up to 2.5 degrees Celsius, marking the beginning of the coldest decade in the past 2,300 years. Snow fell that summer in China. Crops failed, and consequently, people starved. The catastrophe. There were not any tyrannical rulers carrying out any brutal conquests or plagues wiping out entire civilizations. But there was something strange brewing in the sky that sent the world into oblivion. In 536 AD, a massive volcanic eruption in Iceland spewed ash across the northern hemisphere, which was the culprit for the fog which deprived the world of the sun's warmth. And if it was not enough already, 2 more volcanic eruptions followed in the year 540 and 547 AD. When a volcano erupts, it spews sulfur, bismuth, and other substances high into the atmosphere, where they form an aerosol veil that reflects the sun's light back into space, cooling the planet. By matching the ice record of these chemical traces with tree ring records of climate, it was found that nearly every unusually cold summer over the past 2,500 years was preceded by a volcanic eruption. Documentation of the calamity. We have several documentary evidence of the volcanic winter, such as the excerpts from a letter written by Roman statesman Cassiodorus to one of his subordinates. The sky blended with alien elements just like cloudy weather, except prolonged. It was stretched like a hide across the sky and prevented the true colors of the sun and moon from being seen, along with the sun's warmth. The sun's rays were weak, and they appeared in a bluish color. At noon, no shadows from people were visible on the ground. The heat from the sun was feeble. The moon, even when full, was empty of splendor. A winter without storms, a spring without mildness, and a summer without heat. Prolonged frost and unseasonable drought. The seasons seemed to be all jumbled up together. Frosts during harvest, which made apples harden and grapes sour. Starting of a dark period. After the first volcanic eruption in 536 AD, it was followed by at least 2 more volcanic eruptions within the next decade. As a result, there was widespread failure of crops. The Irish Chronicles record a failure of bread from the years 536 to 539. Then, in 541, the Roman port of Pelusium in Egypt was hit by bubonic plague, later known as the Plague of Justinian, named after the Roman Emperor Justinian I, who was infected with the plague but recovered. The deadly disease spread rapidly, causing the demise of 25 to 60% of the population of Europe. The Plague of Justinian is the first and the best-known outbreak of the first plague pandemic, which continued to recur until the middle of the 8th century. According to contemporary sources, the outbreak in Constantinople was thought to have been carried to the city by infected rats on grain ships arriving from Egypt. To feed its citizens, Constantinople and outlying communities imported large amounts of grain, mostly from Egypt. The rat population in Egypt thrived on feeding from the large granaries maintained by the government, and the fleas thrived as well. The court historian of Justinian I, Procopius, gives the count of daily deaths due to the plague as 10,000, but the accuracy of this figure is questionable, and we will probably never know the true number. The period from 536 to 560 AD is also known as the Late Antique Little Ice Age. Using laser technology on ice, a spike in the level of lead in the atmosphere was found to have happened in the year 640 AD, signaling an increase in silver mining, hinting towards an economic recovery. This discovery helps us to safely assume that the economy of the world, and particularly of Europe, continued to struggle for over a century after the worst year to be alive, which by now we might assume to be the worst period to be alive.